Hello and welcome. We are here for the Game On Expert Interviews. I am Jean Berry, and I am very, very excited to interview once again the amazing Anna Frolik. Anna is an expert designer and publisher of decks. She has an extensive background in some incredibly beautiful decks and in publishing and bringing to market a whole slew of amazing Oracle decks, Tarot decks, teaching decks, all kinds of things. I put her full bio below, and you just need to know her because we're going to talk today about everything decks. So welcome, Anna. So glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Jean, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit more. I mean, for those who haven't met you yet, can you speak a little bit more to some of the what brought you into decks? Like, how did you get here?
That really started quite a long time ago. I think almost 10 years ago. I mean, it's been a long journey, but I mean, I've been online as a business owner, let's say, for more than 12 years now. And initially, I took what I knew from corporate. I was a copywriter and content editor back then, but then quite quickly, maybe about a year after that, I hit a wall, and then I felt like there was a need for change in my career, and I found a totally new path. So I started working with angels, and I started doing healing work, and then I got into working with Oracle cards. I had already had some before, but then I just really discovered my passion for that. And then as a creative, I guess it was just a natural thing for me to have that idea pretty quickly, that I just wanted to create my own decks. And so I did it, and I started doing the research. I started kind of finding out more about how to create my own decks, how to get them printed, how to put them out there, and so on. And so that was the first step. But then I also started getting a lot of questions from people who also wanted to create their own decks. I mean, I had a pretty big network of other intuitives and spiritual business owners around me. And so a lot of people asked me, well, how did you do it? How can I create my own? And then I turned that into a course for those who wanted to learn more and who wanted to create their own decks. And for the past 2 years or so, I've been also working one-on-one with people. So I've been offering done-free services too, and that's evolved quite a bit since then as well.
Of course. And I think that that's a common experience in an industry where there's not a lot of support. Like, how do you get a deck done? And I had a very similar thing around games, of course, is that I made one and had to go figure it out. And then others are like, oh, we can shorten the path for this, right? Let's ask someone who's walked that path before. It can be incredibly helpful to have a guide along the way. So that's incredible. Now, I've seen some of the beautiful decks that you've been part of and that you have published. Bought a couple of them. I should have grabbed them here to show, but maybe we'll share some links for some of those decks below as well after for the replay. People can find some of those really fabulous decks that you have been a part of in creating. And in addition, of course, you mentioned you've made some of your own decks. And what is kind of the theme of the ones that were really near and dear to your heart?
I guess just the things that are really near and dear to my heart in general. I mean, anything magical, mystical, fairies, elemental beings, angels too. And communicating with the other realms. I mean, that's always been a big part of my journey. And then, I mean, my favorite deck that I have created for myself probably still is my magical heart healing cards. That was the first deck I created all those years ago. And I'm just waiting for a new version right now. They're supposed to be here already, actually, but they're just a little bit delayed, the shipment.
Okay,
So
well, very
I
exciting.
was
And
hoping
yeah.
I would get to show them here today, but
Oh
unfortunately.
yeah, that is always the challenge, waiting for shipment. But I do want to talk too then about that channeling down and letting things also flow to you and those kind of things. We do have a few people watching us live today. Go ahead in the chat and say, hey, hi, so glad you're here, that you could come and watch. And of course, you can ask the questions that are burning on your heart, like how do we get this stuff done? We are here today to answer those. So definitely go ahead and hop in the chat, say hi, and let us know what your questions are. In addition, I also got some questions in advance because people are like, I can't be there live, but I have some questions. So I do have some questions as we walk down this road. And so I thought we'd split it into kind of 3 sections here because otherwise we'll kind of be all over the place. And so those 3 sections are, first of all, design. Really getting deep into that. And I know this is one of your real expertises and eye and ability to almost intuitively see it, but I know that you can also communicate that to others. So we'll talk a little bit about design, and then we're going to talk about publishing, how to get it out there. I have a few questions from people about the publishing process itself, especially in Canada. They actually had some questions about that, and I know you've done things all over the world. So whereas my expertise is more in the US, I'm kind of excited to pick your brain about Canadians. And then we'll go on to talk about actually selling or marketing decks and getting them out into the world. So if those are our 3 sections, we'll try to stay in those little boxes, but we'll probably be all over the place anyway. So before we get into design, though, I'm kind of curious. How do you use your decks? Like, are you constantly, like, with all these decks around you, are you constantly like, ooh, deck now? Or when you have questions, how are you using your decks personally? Like, how does this work in your world?
So, first of all, I just have a few favorites that I use pretty much all the time. I'd say my magical heart healing cards, I use those every day. I just pull a card in the morning, and that's really what they're for. I mean, that's just a beautiful inspirational deck that you can use every day. So just pull 1 card. And then mine I pretty much use all the time. But then I have a few favorite client decks as well that I use quite a lot. And then I have some other ones, like some Hay House decks that I've had for a long time that I just use occasionally. But I mean, it's not like I'm just playing with cards all day, every day, but just whenever, I feel inspired to do a reading or I have a question that I feel, it's going to be helpful to do a reading, then I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to intuitively pick the deck that I feel drawn to. So that's pretty much how it works.
Yeah, I kind of find that too, and sometimes I go in streaks, and especially at the beginning of months, sometimes, as I'm setting up the energy for the month or that kind of thing, I may end up with a full spread of all different decks of asking different places in my business, in my world and everything. Anything I need to know, right? Here they are. And sometimes I have them set out on my desk all month, like they get to stick with me. Those are my monthly ones. And then, then you have the daily ones, right? The ones that you need to, refer to because you have a question or are just checking in on the energy. Kind of curious about this. How's the energy flowing?
Yeah, I do the monthly ones too. I always do a reading for just business and love. Those are the 2 that I always do every single month.
Oh, I like that. Have a category. Do one for love. All kinds of love, whatever that is. That's beautiful. All right, so if you're watching live, I actually need you to click on the chat and type something because I want to make sure my little chat function is working here and I can't seem to get it to pop up on my screen. So if you're here live, I really, really, really want you to send me a message now because I want to get that function working so I can actually add some notes back to you when I want to add some stuff in there. So go ahead and put that in there. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about design. And this is something, of course, you have an incredible eye for, and you've made some very beautiful decks yourself. And then also you've actually hired some people to do some decks and be team with you on design as well. What do you think are the most important things about design in a deck?
That is a big question. It's almost a little bit too general, to be honest, for me to answer.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's okay. I can rephrase if you'd like.
like, I mean, what I can say about design in general is just it's a very intuitive process for me. When somebody comes to me for a deck, I mean, we meet for a vision and call first, and we kind of channel through some ideas, but I don't actually ever really know what I'm going to create until I actually start creating. So it's very much a process of channeling. I just feel like it really flows through me, and I think that's one of my strengths. Just that really helps me. I mean, with my own creative projects, but especially when I do it for clients too. So I'm not very logical in that sense, or I don't really follow any rules when I design things. It's very intuitive for me and very much based on experience. So I think that's why this question's a little bit hard for me to answer.
No, that's perfect. And it kind of speaks to what I started to talk about a little earlier, which is channeling this information. Most of the people who are actually really interested in a deck, like you say, are incredibly intuitive. They have a lot of those things. And so I find that if you just relax a little bit, you actually know a lot of the things you want to know about the design, right? Even if you don't have the skills necessary. So I guess this would be the deeper question. If you don't currently feel like you have the skills, what can you do in terms of design? I mean, obviously you'll probably end up hiring someone to help you, but what can you do in kind of that pre-work?
Okay, I guess there are a few different things. I mean, always starting with the visioning process is always a good place. Just getting inspired and kind of, feeling into the style that you feel drawn to. And then it's just a matter of deciding how you actually want to do it. So, I mean, some people might have a really good eye for design, but maybe they don't have a lot of experience with graphic design software. But if that's you, then I would say you can learn, you can learn how to use those tools and you'll do well. If you just don't have a good eye for design, you kind of, you're good at getting inspired and getting the ideas, but you just feel like, you don't have that eye for design, then I would say it's probably smarter to hire someone. And I mean, there are different tools you can use for sure. I usually use Photoshop because it's just the most flexible tool that you can use, and you have everything you need, like to prepare pretty much anything you could ever need for any deck, any kind of deck. You could also use Canva. I mean, some people do that for more simple decks. That can work as well.
Yeah, so Laura had actually asked, what is the best software for designing? So you've mentioned Photoshop, and more on the free side would be Canva or something like that for maybe a simpler deck, or just something that's not quite as complicated in terms of design. Any other piece of software that you love for that, or that you like to work with people on?
Those are pretty much the only two that I have worked with. There is one other. Actually, I don't remember. I have it's a pretty new company. I think they have the three main Adobe programs they've kind of recreated, and it's just a lot more accessible in terms of cost. I have their Affinity publisher. That's what I use for the booklets. It's kind of like InDesign. I think they also have an equivalent of Photoshop. I just don't remember right now what it's called, but could be Designer or something like that. But Affinity is the company.
Affinity. Okay, well, cool. That's good to know as well. And you also then inside your courses actually teach how to use Photoshop for doing specific things inside of your deck as well. Yes.
Exactly. So that's a big part of the course. So I've set it up in such a way that you could use it, if you want to learn the whole process of designing the deck yourself. You'll get a pretty extensive collection of videos that will guide you through the entire process of designing the cards and the box and the booklet and everything. But you could also use it just to get the information you need if you want to hire someone to help you too. But yeah, so that's pretty much what it is.
All right. That's awesome. So do you usually start them with kind of a vision? You mentioned visioning, but do you do actually a vision board or anything like that? Is that part of your process for creating, or do you more?
Sometimes it depends on the deck. I've worked with clients where I just felt like it was a good idea to start with some Pinterest boards, or collecting resources from Creative Market. Sometimes that's part of the process. It really depends. Sometimes clients come to me with their own artwork ready, so then it's really more of an intuitive thing. I just kind of see what matches visually, and then we don't really need the vision board, but sometimes it's helpful.
I'm glad you mentioned Creative Market, because that actually can be a great place to kind of shop around for looks. Like I kind of like this look or that look. Some people will go to Pinterest, but it's not quite as pointed to design. And so that's a really fun place to kind of shop around and just look at stuff. Look at fonts, look at little swirlies. I like this swirly and not that swirly, right? That's awesome. I love that. Another resource for design and finding what you would like inside of there. What else do we want to know about design? So is there anything else that as a viewer you're curious about for design? Go ahead and keep adding that in there. But let's go ahead and move on to publishing. And of course, I will give you some more information about Anna's course, which she is offering you guys an amazing deal on today. So I'm excited to share that. So we'll share that in a little bit. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit then about publishing. Now, you actually started your own full-on publishing also for kind of done for you inside of publishing decks. But there's plenty of people, of course, who DIY and self-publish and that kind of thing. Let me narrow down the question. Okay, this is a question that a couple people have asked me about, and it's about the ISBN number. So this is the Canadian-US question that I was kind of mentioning. That's a little bit different based on what country you are in, on how you register your product. And so in the US, you can you can put nothing on the back. In fact, when I made my game, I don't have a barcode, I don't have an ISBN, I have nothing on the back. It's just a product, right? And products don't have those kind of indicators. However, places like Hay House and that kind of thing use ISBN numbers, which are book designations, to put their decks inside of Amazon and in bookstores and that kind of thing. Now, that's an option. You can do that, or you can list your product under games and toys, which is it's not quite as specific to your product. Now, I had one client in Canada tell me that the ISBN company said no ISBN numbers for decks in Canada. Okay, so how does that work?
It's actually pretty easy. So in a lot of countries, you just need to include a booklet with the deck to get one. And I mean, I just did that for my magical heart healing cards because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to register as a publisher otherwise. So that's what I did, and I asked is there a minimum number of pages in the booklet? In some countries, I think there is. Here in Canada, there isn't. So you could just include a really short booklet too, and that will solve the problem. But they will ask you. So yes. when you register, I mean, just include that somewhere in the description or title, so it's clear that there is a booklet included with the deck. And then, when I did that, they just replied and they asked me to confirm, is there really a booklet? And I said yes, and then they approved. So.
Well, beautiful. That was a very easy answer then. Include a booklet. That works. Awesome. Well, cool. And let me see what else she asked about and then she also asked about barcode. So do you know anything about barcodes? Is that just for a product sold in the country or something?
I guess it depends on what you're asking about, but basically if you get your ISBN, you just you can, and depending on where you get it, like in the United States, if you get it from Bowker, then you could get it from them. I usually just use a barcode generator. I mean, if you do get a number, then it makes sense to have it on the box. If you just need one for a regular product, it's a different process. You probably know more about that than I do.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, interestingly, the barcode, you can use a barcode generator. Of course, they can be free online. Bowker does have a barcode generator for your ISBN number, and I think you pay like $50 for it or something like that. But if your designer has the little freebie thing, they will make your barcode and not charge you anything for it. So sometimes your designer also has the ability to make a barcode depending on what they're doing for you. So
it's often even the better solution, because I find you're more flexible with the design if you actually generate it, because there are different tools that you can use. And the more standard ones from Bowker, for example, or other companies that I've used too, they don't always include everything I need, or then maybe it's just like the format doesn't work for the design, things like that. So that's why I typically prefer to generate it myself.
Yeah, makes total sense. Sense. All right, so let's inside of publishing then. A lot of people get kind of stuck on this, when they start to look at pricing, they're like, okay, well, I have to print 1,000 of these to get a great price, or that kind of thing. Is there a method you like to use? I know that you usually, in your design process, do like a demo. That's it for.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, so tell me about
for my own decks, but with clients, I usually skip that part now, just because it takes too much time. It just yeah,
COVID definitely slowed that down.
So anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay. No, so how do you usually walk through that in terms of actually ordering your decks?
Okay, so I mean, there are two different ways of doing it. You already kind of said it. There are print-on-demand companies that you can use to create prototypes and demos. And for my own decks, I still do it that way usually, because I like to kind of test my decks, and then maybe, but it's different when I do it for myself than when I do it for a client, because when I do the same work for clients, speed is more important. Like, we just want to get it done and out there. So when I do decks for clients, most of the time I just work with a company that I connected with about 1.5 years ago, and they're like a printing company that specializes in like larger print runs for games but decks. They have a lot of really beautiful options for decks, and they just have they're so flexible. Like, they have lots of different kinds of boxes and like metallic edges and finishing options like glossy cards, and so pretty much anything that you want, you can just get totally creative and they'll be able to do it for you. And so the minimum number of cards or decks that you need to order is 500. And so there you'd probably, for the average deck, you'd get one deck for about $5 to $6 US plus shipping. I mean, which definitely makes sense if you have the budget for that. And I mean, this company, I just trust them totally. I've just had a really good experience working with them for the past 1.5 years. The quality is always amazing, and I just know that what I send them it's gonna look exactly the way I want it to look.
That's beautiful.
Now, if you're just getting started, then maybe it's you don't really know what you're doing. It might be a good idea to get a prototype printed from one of the print-on-demand companies first, so you can get a feel for what it's actually going to look like.
Yeah, and that comes down then to also this next point, which is about selling and marketing your decks. For the people who are ready to print 500, some of the expectation is that they have an established audience. And so I think that definitely, I don't want anyone to invest in a deck, 500 of a deck, if they haven't done a little testing inside of their audience, or if they don't have an existing audience of any sort. Definitely, that's a big investment for someone without already an established business. And so I agree with you that going the other direction of doing some prototypes and doing a little testing is a good plan. And what has been the main way that you find people in your world, or even through your own decks, that you have been then putting them out there? Are you using like Amazon, Etsy? Are you using more in-house sales? Are you like what is the main way that most of the people that you are working with are selling and marketing?
So I guess the first thing I need to say is, like, that's kind of, I mean, it's not totally my area of expertise. I usually I'm with my clients until the deck is finished, and I help them set up distribution, like through Amazon, that kind of thing as well. So I do help them self-publish the decks. I don't actually publish the decks for them. That will probably come at some point, but at this point I help them self-publish. So I can tell you though what I've seen my clients doing. So I've pretty much seen everything. I mean, I do watch the process afterwards too, and I always encourage everyone to, use what resources they have and what feels good to them. I have one client who has, a huge following on Instagram, and like, I keep forgetting, is it 100,000 or 1 million? I think it might be 1 million. And I mean, she just puts the decks out there, and she makes a lot of sales. I mean, she's sold out decks, even to smaller communities. She just has a really active community, like even Facebook groups, like her own Facebook group. I've seen her sell out decks within a day, or within a week, if it was maybe a larger quantity of decks. And then, I mean, definitely promoting to your own audience first. That it helps, like if you have an established audience, as you already said. And then I'd say like Amazon tends to be kind of the next thing, or Etsy. I mean, I have clients who sell their decks on Etsy, and it works for them. But as soon as you go to an external platform, I think just the whole like search engine optimization, all that becomes more important. And I think it's more part of the long-term strategy. Like, you actually have to, put some pieces into place so you'll get consistent sales through those channels as well. So when you're launching your deck, I would say just, promote to your established audience first. Sometimes doing a Kickstarter can be a good idea too. I had a client last year who ran a Kickstarter, and she did really well. So she hit her goal.
Yeah, that can be a really great way to raise the money for your first production. So if you truly want to do the production and raise some interest, of course, with a Kickstarter, you do have to have some audience already.
And I mean, Kickstarter, I would recommend if you have a large audience too. I've seen a lot of people, not my own clients, but others, who already had a large following. I mean, they hit their goal within a day. And this client I just mentioned, I mean, she promoted to a smaller audience, but it still worked for her. I mean, it just took a bit longer, but she did it within a month, and she hit her goal. I think about 120% funded in the end.
Awesome. That's awesome. I see, Dwayne, you popped in, and I want to mention you because so Dwayne's a holistic CPA. It just says CPA on his title, but I love the idea of, a lot of times we talk to a lot of people who are very much into the healing, the energetic worlds, and we create decks around a lot of those things. But Dwayne, you totally need a financial deck. It can be a teaching deck. It can be, there are so many ways to put a deck out there that can support people, even in things that seem very non-woo. And so totally want to see a financial one, Dwayne. Put it out there. And so have you seen, okay, so now I'm curious, have you seen some really unusual decks, like about different kind of topics that you wouldn't expect?
Totally. I mean, I'm just getting started on one. I don't really think I can share anything about it yet, unfortunately, but it's going to be a really cool one, like totally different from anything I've done before. And I mean, sometimes I have people coming to me even with requests where I feel, okay, that's maybe just not my thing. So, but I mean, anything can happen.
No, I had the very first game I made was on death and dying, which was really interesting. And then I also worked on one with a lady for real estate, which was really incredible. And so it is interesting to see what is out there. Dwayne says money stories. Oh, that would be really awesome. That would be a great deck. Do it.
I have done money decks before.
Yeah.
And yeah, actually the death and dying one, I just work with a client recently. She did a deck around like for parents who have lost a child to suicide, which was, I mean, it was a beautiful project, and that was definitely one that really spoke to my heart. So that was probably one of the more, I mean, I wouldn't say unusual, but just different from anything I've done before. So it was a really beautiful process. We just did a journal for her as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about your course and what you have to offer. Anna and I also have a DIY deck class, and we kind of got together and we talked about it, and we're like, oh my gosh, we do very different things. And so sometimes people are like, well, isn't that competition? I'm like, no, in my group, everyone needs what Anna does. Because, I don't teach design. I'm like, go hire someone. That's pretty much how that rolls. And so I think that, there's such a great place to link arms here. So can you talk a little bit about what's inside of your deck making class around design and what you offer inside there?
Okay, so basically you're going to get everything you need to know to turn your idea into a finished physical product and then put it out there. But it's definitely, like, most of it is focused on the creative process and then just the publishing part. So everything you need to self-publish your deck, how to get your ISBN number, how to distribute your deck to Amazon, those types of things. And a little bit of marketing advice as well, but that's just more of a bonus. So if you need more help with the business part, then I would say go to Jean. That's the course you need. And if you need help with the design, the creative process, and everything around publishing, self-publishing, then you'll find that in my course.
Beautiful. And then the software that you really walk through inside of your course is Photoshop. Yes?
It is.
Yes. Okay, beautiful. And of course, Photoshop is very accessible. Most people can rent it month to month for just, if you don't think you're going to use it forever, you can just, rent it for as many months as you want it. And then you can just turn it off with Adobe. So that's actually a really great thing.
I mean, it's $10 a month.
Awesome. Awesome. That is really great. So, and you have a coupon code for anyone inside of our community who would like to check out Anna's deck creation class. Let me go ahead and put the link for the course here, and then I will give you the coupon code too. Okay, here's the course link going in the chat. I will also be putting it in the information below the video in YouTube as well, so you'll be able to find it there if you can't find it in the chat. And then
I'll just say it too.
Yes. Yep.
So the coupon code is Oracle Magic 25, all uppercase letters, and it's going to be valid until the end of this month, so until the end of August.
Valid through Whoops, I have to type right through August. Can't type and talk at the same time. There we go. All right, so I put that in the chat for you so you can go check out Anna's amazing deck course, and I think you'll like it because, of course, I know you already like her already.
One more thing I need to add, the coupon is for the pay in full version only.
Okay.
So if you wanted the payment plan, it's not going to work, but it's going to make sense to get the pay in full with that discount.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. So if you are watching this later and you have more questions, go ahead and add it in the comments below. We will check back here. I get little notifications in my inbox when someone comments on the videos. Go ahead and like the channel because we do all kinds of cool interviews and all kinds of things around decks and fun and games, and all of that happens right here. So go ahead and like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And Anna, anything else that, last words about creating a deck?
Last words about creating a deck. I actually just had an idea. What if I pull a card for everyone who's watching?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Please
I'd love to do that. So I'm just going to grab my magical heart healing cards. So this is what the box currently looks like, but it's going to be a completely new one very soon. And this is the deck. It's going to have silver edges, the new version. So I'm just going to take a moment to shuffle the cards, and I'm just going to ask for a message for everyone who watches this video live or the replay. So this is for you whenever you find it, and just allow yourself to receive the message that resonates with you. Okay, so this is a beautiful one. This is Prayer of Gratitude. And this is about offerings and heartfelt gratitude. No matter where you are in your journey of life, gratitude will open a magical door in your heart. When you are grateful, you bless yourself and others. Gratitude is an offering of love to God and to those who have gifted you. Take a moment to reflect upon what you cherish most in your life. Give thanks with a sincere heart, and the universe will respond by multiplying what you love. And then there's a magic prayer at the bottom, which says, I give and receive with love and gratitude. So that's the message.
Was amazing. And I really, what poured out for me, what I really heard was what you cherish most in life. Having gratitude for that. And what greater gratitude than creating a deck out of the thing you cherish most in your life. That is amazing.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's your call. Everyone who's watching here, your calling is now very clearly make a deck. You can reach Anna through her website. Of course, you can find her on Facebook, Instagram. She's all those places. Reach out to her for any questions or design services or design support in any way that you need her. If you want a little more marketing and the business side of decks, that's what I do. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation. And we will see all of you all on our next Game On Expert interview. Yay! See ya.